To be the premier refiner for dental professionals, Garfield helps dental offices get the most for their gold, silver, platinum, and palladium dental scrap. With over 130 years in business, Garfield sets the industry benchmark for high payments and superior customer service. That's why they've been voted North America's best dental refiner by Dentaltown magazine for 13 years straight. Get the highest returns on your dental scrap without ever having to leave the office. Right now, Dental Assistant Nerds podcast listeners can get a $25 bonus when they refine with Garfield by using the code DANP-24. Visit www.garfieldrefining.com/DA Nerds podcast to learn more. Download your shipping label and get started today. Looking for affordable and reliable products to help grow your practice? Contact Yeah Dental sales team today to help get you started. You can find them on the web at yeahdental.com. That's YEAHDENTAL.com. You can also call them at 866-376-9324. Check out yeahdental.com today to help with all your product needs in your office.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Dental Assistant Nerds podcast. I'm your co-host, John.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening. Welcome. This is Amanda, your co-host.
All right, so we have a incredible podcast for you today, actually. I don't know if you're aware, I'm sure you're not under a rock, but currently all the groups and social media is a buzz because recently the Dental Hygiene Association sent out a letter getting the dental hygienist a little riled up, I'd say, because the ADA House of Delegates recently passed a couple items that some of the dental hygienists definitely are not too keen on. So that's what we're going to get into today. So, Amanda, what are some of those things that we were reading that they recently now, one thing to keep in mind is the ADA, they're just making recommendations and suggestions. So at the end of the day, your state still has final say. So this isn't the end all be all. I think the way some people are talking, they think this is going to happen tomorrow. Now, obviously, the ADA kind of puts it out there and it gets people thinking like, what's going on? You know, if you have to know there's a shortage of hygienists, right? You have to.
Yeah, I think even if you're a patient listening to this, or if you're, I that we've experienced for years, there's a dental assistant shortage. We've experienced for even years now a hygiene shortage, which does all of a sudden seem to be even more of a shortage. Why? I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, we're always saying how small the dental community is. And I don't know what you see on social media, but I'm definitely not seeing this huge flood of people retiring as a dental hygienist. But there's so many issues with this across the board with assisting schools, hygiene schools, and how many graduates there are to replace these vacant positions. So what did the letter say? It basically highlights three scenarios. So what are those three scenarios? And then we'll talk about the three scenarios. The first scenario is changing the faculty to staff student ratio in dental hygiene programs. So what they're meaning is they're going to accept more students into dental hygiene programs, but they are not going to hire more instructors for those students. So let's say currently, right now, some programs are a 5-to-1 or a 10-to-1. So there's 10 students to one faculty member for a dental hygiene instructor. Let's just say maybe they're going to increase and think about having 15 students to one instructor. So we don't know what the logistics of that is, but that's what they're saying there. So we'll get to what that means. Number two is if you're a dentist in a foreign country and you come to the US, it's always been that you had to go back to school in the US. You had to go back to dental school, whether that was 2 years or 4 years. You had to do an AGD program. So you had to continue. You could have been a dentist in a foreign country for 10, 15, 20 years. You come to the US, you had to go back to dental school and pass our boards here in the US to then be a dentist licensed in the US. So that makes sense, right? So now they're saying this is an opportunity or a possibility for foreign dentists to come to the US and to basically apply for these dental hygiene positions, and also apply for the dental hygiene positions with no additional education here in the US. So as a hygienist, you have to carry a license, a licensure. You go to your doctor's office, you'll see your hygienist license hanging on the wall that they graduated from an education program, but that education program also qualified them to take state boards. So your dentist should have taken a state boards naturally in the US, and your hygienist, but now they're saying an option is that a foreign doctor can come in and work as a hygienist without the state boards. Huge red flag in my mind there. Number three is their option is to let dental students that are in dental school work as a hygienist in dental practices. Don't know how that's even going to work because I don't, as a dental student, they typically don't even have time to work at the local pizza shop to make any money. If you know if you know someone that's in dental school, they are broke. They are poor can be, in dirt or in debt to their eyeballs. So I do not see
And they're
how
in school all the time. You
they're
know,
in, yeah, it's not like they get a break. I mean, they get a break for Thanksgiving and Christmas, but when you go to dental school and hygiene programs, uh, you're in dental school is typically 4 years, and 4 years meaning fall, spring, summer, not the summer off. So, one thing they did not release with that is what year dental student are they talking about? Second year, third year, fourth year dental student. So anyway, so those are the 3 points. Those are the three options. So let's break it down and talk about what, some pros and cons. I don't know too many pros in this scenario, to be honest, but
well, why don't
uh,
we talk a little bit about like why are we here? Like why are we even discussing these options, right? Like, why is it that dentists are calling up and begging the ADA to do something to begin with? So,
uh,
so if
and
you're
this is for hygienists. So me personally, I did a dental assistant program and I applied to get into the dental hygiene program after I successfully finished an assistant program locally here in PA. I did not get accepted for 2 years, and I had already successfully finished their assistant program and did well. And I could not, I applied for 2 years to get into that hygiene program, did not get in. I do. We are big advocates and big supporters on that every role in the dental practice brings value, and we're all educated in a different manner. And you do that education platform, or you get into that career that you find that you want to chase, whether that's to be a hygienist, an assistant, an EFTA, an office manager, you want to get into a treatment coordinator, you want to be the doctor, you want to be the dental rep, you do you. And respectfully, that everybody has a different role. So it's not to, put anybody's, sorry, excuse me, education down of who went to school more or who has more value in whose education. Uh, so hygienists are very educated in what they're doing and to perform the best patient care. So, but it's very competitive. Even once you're in a dental hygiene program, I think these schools need to be evaluating their dropout rate.
yeah,
That's part of what has also gotten us here, the dropout rate and the failure rate.
well, I mean the acceptance rate as well. I mean, you have how many assistants who already love dentistry that are trying to get into these programs and they're getting denied, but then you're taking people who have no idea what the dental field even stands for or what it consists of. And then they get in and they're like, ah, this isn't for me. Like you have people that already love this field, know what that job entails, want to do it, will do well at it because everything else that they've already done. Think about some of the hygienists that we know who were assistants that went back to school and did become hygienists, whether it's in person or on social media. Like they're huge advocates of it because they're so well rounded that they can explain and talk about so many different things. So, instead of only focusing on hygiene and looking for things to talk about, they're able to explain root canal therapy. They're able to explain the process of some of these procedures. And when a patient has a question, that truly does alleviate a lot of, oh, let me go and get the doctor because they already know and they can answer these questions. So, it's just a huge ball that's dropped on so many ends with these hygiene schools because, we have a few hygiene schools here in our area. And like Amanda said earlier, they only accept X amount of students. And then when those students drop out, now it's a 2-year program and the bus has already left the station. And now you've lost X amount of students like so early on. It's not even like you can call people who were on the waiting list and say, hey, let's get you caught up. Like the bus has left the depot.
Yeah.
So
I
unfortunately,
mean,
now those people are waiting for the next class to start.
yeah, so I mean, you have a 2-year program that accepts, let's just say, 25 students, and the local program is only graduating 16. But if you're on Indeed or Dental Post or our social media sites, and you'll see I don't even know what the number is. It has to be in the hundreds of hygiene positions that are available. So, oh, congratulations, great on those 15 that graduated, but there's 15 students and there's, you know, at least 150 to 200 probably dental hygiene positions within a 50-mile radius that need to be fulfilled, and only 2 hygiene programs in the area. So, and let's not even talk about how difficult it is to run an education program in the state of Pennsylvania. Thank you to the Pennsylvania Department of Education.
Yeah.
So a whole other ball game on why you see schools closed, but that'll be maybe another podcast. So yeah, the the acceptance rate and the dropout rate is something that really significantly has got us to this point of being such a shortage. Uh, and we could spin this a little bit into the dental assistant world is the wages of what staff members are asking to be paid now. uh and of course we get kickback, which I completely understand from a business standpoint, is the fact that the increases of the amount of money that insurance companies are paying dental practices has not increased in years. I think the number's like 10 or 15 years, maybe even longer.
Yeah,
So,
it's the insurance reimbursements haven't kept up. And here in Pittsburgh, it's heavily competitive to the point where some insurance reimbursements have actually gone down because more offices have signed on. So they drop the reimbursement. So, if no matter what position you are in the office, but particularly if you're a hygienist and you're kind of like, well, I'm finally making X amount of dollars, you have to be realistic and talk to your office to find out what these reimbursements are. Now, I know people are like, I didn't sign up for those insurance reimbursements. That like I didn't sign
yeah.
on to that, but you still have to be realistic. And if you're working for that practice, even though you didn't sign up for that, you essentially did sign on for the income of that office. So we always tell our students that if depending on what kind of practice you want to work in is really going to dictate your capability of a wage, because if you work in a heavily state assistance practice, you're probably going to be limiting what you can get paid versus if you worked in a high-end practice. So, if you're making $50 an hour and the office is getting reimbursed $42 for a pro fee, something's got to give. And,
Yeah.
unfortunately, the something that's got to give is ADA decisions like this. Instead of, and once again, this isn't an attack on a hygienist. This is more so instead of dentists getting together and begging and pleading with the ADA to talk to dental insurance companies. This is where we're at. This is the kind of the solution, you know. And unfortunately, I don't know if you look and see what's going on, but go to any football stadium lately and you'll see that Delta Dental has made a $2 million contribution to, advertise at a football stadium, or some of these dental schools anymore are accepting contributions of donations. So, um, unfortunately, it's out there now that people don't want to rock the boat of the insurance company because they're donating so much to the schools and advertising and you know, there's even talk of some of them even opening their own school. So imagine what kind of doors that's going to open that we get into. So, um, but let's take a quick commercial break, and then we are going to get into these other topics when we come back with this episode of the Dental Assistant Nerds podcast.
Do you know that Alta scrubs give a fit? Scrubs that measure up with modern styles, four-way comfort stretch, feather soft material, medical tough, and of course, lightweight. Go to shopaltabrand.com today. And of course, don't forget to use your discount code DANP10, courtesy of your friends, the Dental Assistant Nerds podcast. From work and dentistry, maybe in the form of memes or just plain old good humor, well, check out Dental Comedy Hour. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe today so you have access to all of their amazing content. Just search Dental Comedy Hour on your social media platforms.
All right, and welcome back to the other side of the Dental Assistant Nerds podcast. We are currently talking about the state of dental hygiene with a letter that was recently released based on a ADA recommendation suggestion. So Amanda's going to pick that back up. Hopefully you caught some of that the first half. So Amanda, take it away. What else are we talking about here?
So, the whole point of this is how can we alleviate and how can we fix some of the problems that we're seeing in the shortage in the dental practice when it comes to the dental hygiene rules. So, number one is the faculty to student ratio. So, they're talking about increasing the amount of students that are accepted into programs, which could be great to replenish these positions that are in our dental community as an educated and obviously licensed dental hygienist. A dental hygienist is who you go to when you get your teeth cleaned in case you need that clarification. But they're not going to increase the amount of instructors for those ratios of students. So this is definitely going to be an argument of, as any profession in dentistry is a hands-on profession. A dental assistant is a hands-on profession. We're not sitting behind a computer. Hygienist is a hands-on profession with a lot of explanation from our instructors that are also either doctors, dentists, hygienists, that are educators as well. So if we have 15 or 20 students and we only have one instructor and we need help as a hygiene student then it is going to decrease that value of instructor student ratio. So now is, a potential student going to be able to work through some of those hiccups? I mean, as we know, if you're in a English course at a college university, sometimes there could be 200 or 300 students sitting in that course and you have one instructor, but it's not a hands-on lecture. It's a lecture. You're listening, you're taking notes. So, it's not, could that work in the long run? I think yes. Is it going to make people unhappy? I say yes. I think no matter what anybody does in this scenario, yet again, you're going to have people that are loving the outcome and people that are not loving the outcome. You're not going to make everybody happy in a scenario such as this for sure. But it is something that at least it's going to get licensed hygienists in those vacant positions as a hygienist. So let's look at it from that positive side of things. Number two is my biggest red flag of the three, personally. Remember, podcasts are mostly opinions. So, foreign dentist coming into the US and practicing and applying for vacant positions as a dental hygienist with no licensure. So that means currently there's probably a lot of foreign dentists that are in the US right now that are loving this option because they have to reapply to get into dental school here in the US. They have to wait. Financially, a lot of foreign students, I mean, a lot of people in general cannot afford to go to dental school. We'll not talk about that, but it's a lot of money, a couple $100,000. So if you're a foreign dentist, you've been a dentist in Japan for 15, 20 years and you moved to the US and you've been waiting to get into dental school and you've been working at a local restaurant or at your dental practice as maybe an assistant even because you don't need the licensure, that now you're going to be able to step into that dental hygiene role. So the downfall of that is that they did not take a board exam and they're not carrying a license unless that's changed. And, unless that's something that the American Hygiene Association, American Dental Association looks into on how can we get these foreign doctors licensed to do dental hygiene in the US. So I think this is going to be the biggest one that will really get the biggest rumble in it's one of those moments that and of course we're seeing on social media already in the last 12, 24 hours that this is where you have to come together as a community, as if you're already a dental hygienist or if you're a doctor and you're against this, that this is a moment that you have to voice your opinion and write that letter and talk to your congressman or whatever you think you need to do, but also that as a patient, to go to the dental office for our appointments, we hear all the time, like, I like you, but I hate coming here. It's a fearful appointment. And can you imagine what a patient is thinking when they're laying in that chair, that they're trusting that the person that working on them has some sort of education background and is licensed to do what they're doing to you as the healthcare service that you're getting, as getting your teeth cleaned. But there's this huge kind of lack of education to our patients that don't realize that even as an assistant, you don't need a formal education to be able to do what you're doing as a dental assistant. I experienced that just about a month ago in a practice. Obviously, I am an EFTA. I've been a dental assistant for 20 years. We are now owners and educators of a dental assistant education program in Pennsylvania. That the patient in the chair was floored that she could be working, that the next office that she goes to, that assistant is not receiving any formal education. She's like, oh my gosh, I just assumed that it was something that you needed a formal education to be a dental assistant. So a hygienist, the same. And as we're very well aware of, the standard of care in other countries is not the same as it is here in the US. The standard of education is not the same. So the products are not the same. You would think dental products across the world are the same that we're using in dentistry, and it's definitely not. Even our handful of foreign students that we've had in our dental assistant program in the last 3 years and discussed, how different dentistry is here in the US compared to other countries. So, any take on this one? What do you think, John?
I think that there's a lot of dentists here now that practice in other countries. They're here, and because they contact us and they say, hey, I want to go to school to be a dental assistant, because they even need some certifications here to work as a dental assistant, and they essentially want to work their way back up. So obviously this would be great news from their perspective if they're like, oh wow, I can just kind of bypass everything. We live in Pittsburgh here. It's basically this big melting pot of all these ethnicities, and I forget what the percentage is of dental students are actually foreign born. So Pitt takes one of the highest percentages of foreign born dentists to begin with. So now I feel like I know so many people that moved here and went through these channels, and now you're telling other people, hey, you can just kind of bypass that and become a hygienist automatically, you know?
It's it's talk about ruffling some feathers. I think this is definitely gonna
Yeah,
thankful turkey season is here. This is gonna ruffle a lot of, and I personally as well, I don't find it fair, if that's the term we want to use, that, hygienists have to go to school for a 2 or 4 year program, do all these hands-on experiences. They have to have so many patients during their programs in order to graduate, to even get to the board review. They have to perform so many proofy exams, so many deep skills. There's, kind of like this checklist that's fairly long, and now a foreign doctor can come in and just move on. Hello, waltz right into the double door, open, and as well, one of the things that need to be talked about is in the US or a foreign country, let's think about this. Let's just say from here in the US, if you're in dental school, and we don't know the answer to this question. So if you're listening to this and you're a dentist, you can private message us or send us an email. If you're in dental school, how much hygiene education do you perform or do you get as a dentist? So if you're in dental school, is there one semester with 2 classes of dental hygiene classes of, the scale of education that a dental hygienist is receiving? So is it 2 weeks? Yeah, I don't know. Is it one
yeah. I
semester?
mean, I,
Is
I
it
mean, I've heard a dentist reference 2 weeks before, and
yeah,
it,
I'm
it,
gonna we're gonna speculate real quick here. It's not 2 years.
right,
A
right.
hygiene
It's not
program.
2 of the 4 years of your dental school. Absolutely,
No,
I mean, I once worked with a dentist who thought that perio disease was a conspiracy. So I definitely wonder, like, okay, how much hygiene, education are they really getting? So,
yeah,
um, I think that if I'm a hygienist, honestly, I'm grouping together. I'm the type of person that, hey, there's a problem. This is something I was always taught. If there's a problem, don't sit here and keep complaining about it. Come up with a solution. If
amen. Yes,
if
yes,
the
100%.
hygienist
Amen.
if
Yes,
if the hygienist would come together and say, you have to know something's going to happen. Like as a hygienist, you just can't think, oh, we're just going to keep working shorthanded and I'm going to keep getting paid 60, 70, 80, $90 an hour infinity. Something's got to give, you know? So
yes,
I think you need to get with a hygienist in your state or this person with all these initials writing this letter, and you need to come up with a realistic solution. Me personally, um, we still have one more to go here, but me personally, I think obviously opening the doors of the hygiene school and those ratios. I don't think everybody wants that one-on-one time, and I get that. But to me, that's probably the easiest solution is higher acceptance and ensuring that those students graduate. Why is it that people can go to school for 4 years and you hear of these dental classes of 80 people and they might have lost one or two? Why is it that somebody can go 4 years in a dental school and you might have one or two people drop out, but hygienists have a 2 year program and 10 plus drop out? What is the problem and the disconnect is to why dental schools seem to fight to keep people because they know once you lose that spot, you're not replacing it. So why is it that somebody's going to tough it out and stick it out 4 years versus the 2 years? So I think for hygiene, there's definitely a lot to look at and fix, but out of all those options, that's what I'd focus on and, you know, kind of get some help that way. Now, granted, yeah, you're talking about 2 years down the road. ADA and some offices want immediate relief. if I'm looking at immediate relief, it's probably the foreign trained dentist that they're going to push for right away. So
Mhm.
I think instead of fighting all three, you got to get behind something because, we mentioned dental students earlier, and, we basically already covered that. Like, I don't know anyone that has time in dental school to moonlight.
Mm-mm.
And the only people I know that moonlight are students that have graduated dental school, but now they're going for their residency for back to school. They're
Right,
in between
right.
like ortho, they can work on the weekends. So I feel like that's covered as far as the dental student. But uh, another push, and it isn't on this list that we're in groups, is the dentists want FTAs to step up and do scaling, and of course, hygienists are completely against that as well. And at the end of the day, I think you just have to get behind what you think an option. And if you don't think it's one of these options, I think you need to think outside the box and come up with an option to help this problem. Because as bad as it is now, they're predicting in another 6 years, 33 more percent of dental staff are going to be retiring. And the conference Amanda and I just attended, they said right now, every 11 dentists retiring, only one dentist is graduating. So now we're trying to navigate our way through this, and we have this dentist problem. So I think for those of you making your kind of wages and out there temping, I think you need to really evaluate what kind of jobs you're taking, because I see videos of girls like in the car crying and they're like, oh, I'm temping at this office and I'm making $60 an hour, but I'm doing assisted hygiene. What did you think was going to happen? Like, you got to
Right.
ask questions. Like, if you don't want to work for 60 an hour and do assisted hygiene, like, you got to ask questions ahead of time. I mean, I'm always asking, when I do temp work, I'm always asking these kind of questions. I mean, I'm asking what time's lunch, let alone like how many patients I'm seeing.
And I mean, we are full advocates on increase of pay. Let's be honest, post-pandemic really helped out the dental assistant world, which is of course our strong suit and our professional careers that we have followed, and we can do a whole other podcast yet again about how, you know, in the grand scheme of things, dentists, really quote unquote got by with paying assistants a very low rate. And then, pandemic time and, the dental community, coming back from that. And it's like, there was like this like blow up moment of like, hold the phone here. Like, poof, finally something like sparked of like these dental assistants thinking, and realizing, wait a second, I've been working for 14, $15 an hour or less,
Yeah.
and I need to know all this. I need to know what every single instrument is that my doctor needs and every product that he or she needs for every procedure. And I need to be able to educate the patient on maybe what the doctor's recommending in the treatment plan, that the dentist wants to be able to come in and perform the dentistry, but the dental assistant is in charge of everything else, which I'm definitely an advocate for. But I'm not an advocate for someone doing it for 9, 10, $11 an hour. So if you want the rate, which I also want the rate, let's be honest, we're not going to work to volunteer our time. When I volunteer, I want to be the old lady rocking the babies and like the NICU unit singing lullabies, because I've met my time of retirement, and I'm holding babies for fun and knitting a crochet blanket. But if I want the rate, then ask yourself the realistic question of what value of worth ethic do I need to bring to the dental practice today in order to deserve that rate? If it's $40 an hour, $60 an hour, whatever it is, if it's $20 an hour, just what it's one of those moments that we don't want to be confronted as human beings. We don't like to be criticized on, you want $40 an hour or $60 an hour, but you don't want to help me fill the schedule if the patient no shows, or if there's a last minute cancellation. You just want, an extra coffee break, which I'm a fan of coffee, clearly. But, we have to bring the value to the practice of the money that we want to make.
Yeah. And,
So,
you know,
and I've lost a job. As John knows, I've been fired as a dental assistant before, uh, for whatever reason, we can talk about that later if someone wants to know, that, there's gonna, I mean, think of the CEO of the company that makes $250,000 a year, but they can hire the 30-year-old and pay that person $165,000 a year. The 250,000 guy's getting cut. It's just a business realistic decision.
Yeah.
So
And for, hygienists, you're some hygienists aren't helping their cause because they're like posting on TikTok of them like making $90 an hour and their patient canceled or no show and they're grabbing a blanket and they're, laying in their chair watching TV on the ceiling. Like definitely not helping getting, when I read in the groups this letter being posted, the dentists were pretty much like they made their bed. They're all for it because they feel like they were taken advantage of. And going back to pre-pandemic, I knew hygienists right out of school carrying 60, 80 grand in debt, making $18 an hour practicing hygiene, and,
crazy.
and
Yeah.
dental assistants making $9, $10 an hour, going to school for, 20, 30 grand for assistant school. And what's funny is we recently were at a conference and we mentioned what assistant schools cost and people were just blown away. They were just like, wait, what?
Yeah,
They
I don't know where these hello to you doctors that are dentists, which we love, but yeah, dental assistant programs are not cheap either. Now, mind you, as we know, some doctors will come back, well, I'm $400,000 in debt to be a doctor.
yeah.
Good for you. I am proud of you. I'm a proud mamacita moment that I'll cry when you graduate and walk across that stage because of your accomplishments. It's not for everybody. So when an assistant is graduating a dental assistant education program in 25 to $30,000 of debt, and you want to pay them $12 an hour, come on,
Right, right.
be realistic here.
Yeah, so we hope that we covered a lot of ground today. We wanted to hurry up and get this podcast out because obviously everybody's talking about it. So just some things to keep in mind and obviously, us being assistants, we kind of we're in the middle of it. Basically we're kind of the chew toy in between two dogs, and we're given a couple of helpful suggestions that all sides can hopefully come to an agreement. But like I said, I would suggest getting with your community, your state, and figuring out a compromise to hit this thing head on. Because if you just sit back and you're like making videos on TikTok and you're just like complaining, come up with a solution. That's
You must advocate for yourself. You
yeah,
must, no matter what platform of work you're in, or education that you want to get into. It doesn't matter if it's dental, hygiene. My parents are educators as well in a public school system. They don't get paid dirt to be an educator. To start out, you have to advocate. You have to advocate for the cost of living, your debt of what you got into to be, what your college cost. But yeah, advocate for yourself and continue to try to make a change.
yeah.
Try to at least spin it in the right direction. And, little by little, you know, what's my husband's, what's that elephant analogy?
Don't
Come
eat
on,
a whole elephant, take a bite at a time, whatever.
take a bite. Yeah, whatever this elephant came into play.
Yeah. I mean, I'd pick something a little more realistic that people actually eat, but that's just me.
Small bites eat the elephant. I'm not eating an elephant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, good luck.
Yeah.
And we are advocating for you as well. Any way we can help. Sometimes it's just a vent session. So we want you to continue to stand tall, stand out, as a dental assistant, as a dental personnel, as a person in general of, advocating for what you want. Continue to educate yourself. Training is your future. So no matter what platform, again, that you're in, grab that magazine today that your doctor threw in the garbage because he doesn't read the dentistry IQ magazine. There's some good stuff in there. So as a dental assistant, read it as well and continue that education. So thank you all for listening, and we can't wait to see how this pans out.
Yeah, so thanks again for your support. Don't forget you can follow, subscribe to us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You can search Cornerstone Dental Assistant Academy, or of course the Dental Assistant Nerds podcast. And thanks again for joining us, and we will catch you on the next episode.